Today we are going to continue working with circles, but we are going to focus on using coordinates to prove things about our circles. But before we begin, let's go ahead and focus once more on the kinds of problems we were working with yesterday. So I want to make sure that I know how to write the equation of a circle. And so in order to do that, I need to find the center. The center of this circle is at 0, -2, and its radius is 1, 2, 3. I can double check that by checking one more spot with the radius. And then I want to go ahead and plug in these values. So I have h, k, and r. So this is going to be x minus 0 quantity squared plus y minus -2 quantity squared equals r squared. Remember that squared means you're multiplying that number times itself, which will give me 9. This negative, we have to remember that that's going to end up making a positive, so plus 2. And then that minus 0 can just be written as x squared. You could write it as minus 0, but the simplified version is what you see in front of you right now. So today, let's go ahead and take an equation, identify the center and the radius, and then go ahead and graph that equation. So I know that this is where I find my h value, my k value, and my r. So in order to find h, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to have to flip the sign, and the same rule will happen with k. So in order to find h and k, I'm going to flip the sign, and in order to find my radius, I'm going to need to go ahead and take the square root. So because we are taking the radius out of the equation, I have to do my square root, because that is how you undo something that's being squared. So I will use the square root symbol. Remember, there is a way that you can use your Chromebook calculator in order to give you this number. So my radius will come from the square root of 4, which means what number multiplied by itself equals 4? That would be 2. And then for my center, I need to make sure that I flip those signs. So I'm going to have -1 and +3. So I'll graph -1, 3. And then I'll go ahead and I'll graph that radius. So from the center, I then want to count out 2 spaces. And then connect the dots. And that is how I graph my circle. So let's try another one. This time I say I have x squared plus y minus 2 quantity squared equals 9. So I know that if I just see x squared, that's the same thing as x plus 0 squared. So my h comes from that 0, my k comes from the -2, and my r comes from the 9. So my center is going to be 0. Can't flip that sign because 0 isn't positive or negative. And then that -2 is going to become positive. So my center is at 0, 2. And then my radius, I'm going to take the square root of 9, which will give me 3. So then from my center, I count out 1, 2, 3 units. 1, 2, 3 units. And I do that, we think about that as north, south, east, west. So I do that for all directions, and then I connect my circle. Let's try this one more time. We have this time the y squared, which I know is y plus 0 squared. So my center is going to be -1, because I have to flip that sign, 0. And then for my radius, I'm going to take the square root of 1, which just happens to be 1. So sometimes that can throw people off, but don't let that confuse you. And then all I do is go 1 unit away, north, south, east, west, and connect the dots. The second kind of problem we're going to work through today is where I give you a point. So let's go ahead and put that point on the graph. So that's 0, 8. And then we are going to have our origin for our center. So that's going to be at 0, 0. And our radius is 8. And we want to see, does the point lie on the graph? So in order to accomplish that, we will go ahead and graph our center at 0, 0. And then my radius is 8. So I'll go out in 8 from all directions and connect the dots. And we see that our circle does go through 0, 8. So we have proven that this is a true statement and that my circle does go through 0, 8. So now I'm going to start at the origin, which is 0, 0. And I know that my radius is 8 again. So starting at 0, 0, and I'm going to count out 8. So here's my circle. And then I want to see, does the point 2, 3 lie on that circle? And no, there is no way that 2, 3 is going to lie on the circle. So this is a false statement. So this time, notice that we are given the point 4, comma, negative square root of 5. So if this is the point that I'm proving or disproving is on the circle, I need to figure out what the square root of 5 is approximately. And you can put that in your calculator and it will give you a decimal. And that decimal is about 2.2. So negative 2.2. So when I graph that, I'll go over to 4 and then I'll go down 2 and then just a little bit past. It doesn't need to be perfect, but we get the idea. Then I'm going to go ahead and graph my center at the origin, my 0, 0, and my radius of 3. So I can go out 1, 2, 3 on all sides. And there's no way that that point is going to be on the circle. And so therefore I know that this has been disproved and this is a false statement.